Hello, thanks for joining us, everybody. Hopefully you are coming off a break and have just watched our session about Azure Active Directory. We shared our vision and our roadmap to help you secure remote access and boost your employee productivity. I'm Adam Harbour. I'm a member of the Azure Active Directory marketing team, and I'm excited to share with you this Q&A today. So we have a handful of our experts here today, and hopefully you'll recognize them all from the session that you just watched. You're all on a Teams live event, so we can't hear you. So what you're going to need to do is type in your questions in the chat box. And we have on our side, we can see all your questions. We're going to manage them. We'll be answering some of those directly in the chat since we can only get to so many here in the 30 minutes. But then we'll also ask some live to our experts that are going to join us and we're going to introduce in a second. And if you have some of your favorite questions, feel free to upvote, show us visibility that this is something that somebody already asked, but that's really important to you. And then we'll take them one by one and you'll get to hear from all our folks. Just to note, this session may be recorded, so please be mindful of that. And please do not spam or post inappropriate comments in the chat. We want to adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct that applies to all of the next 48 hours during Microsoft Ignite. And here's just a quick reminder of the Microsoft Code of Conduct. Please be respectful to your fellow attendees and let's have a great time. So with that, I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our experts. And again, you should recognize everybody here. Hopefully you got to watch that session by Joy and the team. So we have all of our demoers and technical experts. So we have Joey Cruz. He's a senior program manager. He's on our identity, customer, and partner success team. We have Bailey Bursick. She's also on the identity, customer, and partner success team. She's a program manager with the team. They both specialize in Azure Active Directory and Zero Trust. We have Jasmine Bethauser. She's a senior program manager on the Azure AD program management team. She's a super pro on Azure AD application proxy that we just had some exciting announcements about. So hopefully we get to ask her some exciting questions. And then we have Melanie Maines, one of my peers on the Azure AD product marketing team, and she is a pro in decentralized identity among many other things. And we're excited to have her as well. So with that, let's take some questions. And you guys go ahead, get them queued up, and then we'll start looking for a couple more. But first, let me ask Melanie. I think we closed the session with decentralized identity, so that might be top of mind for a lot of folks. We talked about verifiable credentials in the case of the MilGears and Department of Defense education use case. How are verifiable credentials different than what we have today?
Today, if you want to go unshare your information, it's really difficult. I mean, there are some policies now like GDPR, where if you go out to the websites, you can kind of, turn off some of the privacy turn on the privacy policies and turn off how much you're sharing. But it's really hard to unshare. And so Microsoft has been involved in an effort with the whole community, Centralized Identity Foundation, and many other leaders in the industry to find a new way for individuals to gain ownership of their data, because it's a huge problem and everyone's starting to feel it. And so what verifiable credentials does, verifiable credentials is actually a W3C standard that we have been using and trying to implement into our own products like Azure AD. So, to get a verifiable credential, we want to make it super easy for users and very accessible for users. And so, they can use something as simple as the Authenticator app, which you might have already on your phone. We're going to build in the capability to do that, as you saw in our demo, in our pilot demo. And so it's, it'll be a digital version of your credentials. And the credentials can be a lot of different things. It could be any kind of data that you want to have cryptographically verifiable. So other types of data, could be your membership in an organization or a program. It could be a license. It could be test results, prescriptions, even GitHub code you can now put in a verifiable credential. So it's a digital version of what you have today, but it's also cryptographically protected. That's why I'm really excited about it.
Great, thank you. We've got a question for Jasmine. For Azure AD application proxy, it works only with web apps. Are there any plans or partnerships with other vendors for combined solutions, for network-based tunnels for non-web apps without proxy?
Yes, that's a great question. So that is correct. Today, App Proxy is primarily used for web applications. We do offer an option to also secure remote desktop services without proxy. So that is an existing option today if you are looking to publish some client-based applications to your users. We also have options through the secure hybrid access partnerships where we do integrate with products like Zscaler, F5, and other types of partners to enable coverage for more of your applications. So I know some of those partnerships do have this like tunnel-based protocol support. And then just to give you as well some insight, we are thinking about as well, how we can continue to further improve App Proxy and make coverage for all your apps even easier. So that is something that we're continuing to think about to see how we can support more of that stuff natively, kind of like we showed today with the header-based auth support.
Awesome, thank you. Question for Bailey. Do you see your customers having a lot of granular conditional access policies or more coarse grained policies with some exceptions for edge cases?
Ooh, so you see a mix of both, and I think the best way to go about making your conditional access policies is just to whiteboard out all the users you have in your environment and the different ways that you would like for them to access information. So with you saying granular and also more coarse ones, yes, you should lock it down and have those policies that just in general lock everything down, but you should always have extra policies for your users who have privileged accounts, also for your users who might have access to more sensitive information or data just based off of their job description. And additionally, we showed some content about user risk earlier as well. So just think about what ways you would want to implement those conditional access policies and ensure that the last bit I wanted to mention was your break glass account. So ensure that those are always going to be in a policy that keeps them separate from others, so that way you don't have to MFA with them in the horrible event if you would ever have to use them. So having a mix of both to answer your question.
Perfect, thank you. Question for Joey. Is there any roadmap for using Windows Hello for Business over RDP in a key trust scenario?
So that's definitely some feedback that is being, and when we're saying Windows Hello for Business, we're defining two different types, cert trust and key trust. I can say RDP and Windows Hello for Business, that's definitely feedback we've received, but it's definitely something that we're looking into.
Thank you. All right, a question for Bailey. Do you see your customers having, sorry, that was one we already asked. Bailey or Joey, I think you're probably good on this one. How did the template get from GitHub when we showed that demo? How did it get from GitHub into our conditional access tools within Azure AD, our conditional access area? Blade.
I will let Joey take that one.
Perfect.
Yes, so thank you. That's actually a great question. I think Bailey had the short link up, but it's a logic app. So all it's doing is parsing through a JSON file that we've uploaded. It's really easy to create. It takes a couple minutes. We're going to be publishing actual steps on how to actually do it, but you should see the actual documentation on how to do it, the logic app, so you can do it yourself here soon, so you can take a look at it and be able to use it. But all it is just a JSON format. It calls our conditional access API and it populates conditional access, which is super helpful for those that need a way for like documenting or moving from pre-production to production. You can easily migrate and use those specific APIs in the JSON policies to move from pre-production to prod.
Perfect, thank you. Question for Jasmine. What types of application authentication modes can I now use with that proxy? Just, I know we had an announcement on that, but also it'd be good to summarize for folks what they can use.
Yeah, definitely. So today we do offer support for a number of different types of auth modes for your apps, and this really helps you start to simplify managing all these apps in one place and provide that consistent login experience. So some of the modes we offer are Windows Integrated Auth mode. That's probably one of the most popular, especially for apps that are using Windows authentication. We can leverage Kerberos constrained delegation and that flow to make that happen. And then other modes we also support are SAML protocol, and then as well as for forms-based applications, you can use password-based single sign-on.
Perfect, thank you. Melanie, let's talk a little bit more DID. So we talked about the Milgears use case in Joy's session about the case for verifiable credentials in that particular scenario. What are some other use cases that we have seen, not mentioning names, but particular types of use cases, or some that you anticipate will be very powerful once we have these capabilities available for everybody?
Yeah, great question. I think every industry can really benefit from adopting verifiable credentials in some way. The education sector we talked about, diplomas, certifications, transcripts, even at work, it might be some courses that you took just to verify you've done the training. But other industries like finance, retail, when you're doing transactions, that would be a great use case. And we're working on a couple pilots in a few of these different industries. We've also worked, last year we talked about working with the National Health Service in the UK to verify the doctor's credentials. And so being able to get them onboarded into the company without taking weeks just to verify someone's credentials, professional degrees, background history. Now all of that can be done in a matter of minutes. And so it's really going to improve a lot of these processes that rely on something that's manual, written on paper. So we see a lot of opportunities for customers, not only to reduce their costs and the time, but also the risk, because you're now giving individuals more ownership over their information, and you as a company don't have to store that information to the extent that, only to the extent that you need to. And sometimes it's just as simple as validating the information on the blockchain, and you don't even have to, take that information into your ownership. And so it reduces that risk for companies. Some of this will rely on regulations. There's a lot of work in the industry that needs to get done to help, move along these regulations and, really give users back control and really balance the privacy and security aspects for both the user and the organization.
Awesome. Jasmine, apps are incredibly popular in the chat, as expected. I think this is obviously super top of mind for customers as they're dealing with the remote work world that we're in, and just in general, the sea of apps that a lot of organizations use today. One question on App Proxy roadmap. Are there any plans to integrate App Proxy with the Azure WAF service?
That is a great question. So in terms of security, that's something we're really looking at, really giving you more session controls and monitoring controls for your apps that you publish through App Proxy. We have a lot of opportunity in that space. So WAF is one of the things we've been hearing, so we are investigating and seeing what we can do there. But another thing we're also looking at is deepening our integrations with services we already have today, like Microsoft Cloud App Security. Today you can use that in conjunction with App Proxy to provide in-app app security controls. So we're also broadening what we do there to give you some more session monitoring controls. So it kind of is in a similar realm of like enhancing the type of security controls you have.
Perfect. And then I'll hold on to you for one more question. Legacy auth solutions like SiteMinder and even modern solutions like Ping Access provide URI-based protection. How can or will Azure AD fill that gap?
Yes, so as we saw in the demo earlier, I kind of showed you publishing a specific application and configuring headers required for that, and as well as setting any policies you have with that. So with App Proxy, anytime you want to have a more granular resource, for example, a resource path to have a different kind of policy, you can easily publish that as a separate application and apply whatever type of users and groups, conditional access policies are needed, and even the specific headers for that path. So that is something you can do today, perhaps a little different than what you're used to because you are using you're creating an enterprise app to manage that specific part of the app. But that is possible, and we are looking at ways to make management of that even easier in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you. Question, I'm going to throw this out to either Bailey or Joey. How common are conditional access policies versus security defaults, particularly in enforcing MFA? From a Graph API perspective, how do we approach them?
So I can tackle the first part, and then Joey, you can talk about the Graph API perspective, if that works.
Perfect.
We can cut it in half. So for security defaults, if you are, not an Azure AD premium customer, so if you're using the free version, that is what I would recommend that you use there, because once you are in the P1 or P2 bracket, you have access to conditional access, which gives you just so much more capability there. So you really don't need those security defaults anymore. We have some documentation as well online that we can paste to you after this, or perhaps if one of our mods is, knows exactly what I'm thinking of, but exactly how to translate those security defaults into conditional access as well. So that way you ensure that you have the exact same functionality, but just with greater controls that come with conditional access.
Perfect. Then Joe, you want to take the back half?
Yeah, specifically when it comes to APIs, it really depends on the organizations. I've had different organizations or experiences with different organizations that prefer APIs over the GUI. It's really up to your preference, but definitely exactly what Bailey said. P1, P2 puts you in a more controllable phase, and security defaults is more of a blanket statement, and that's really, it's definitely super useful. So. But P1, P2 gives you a more granular control over what you can do with the security defaults. So that's definitely a different preference. So if you prefer APIs, use the Graph API. If you don't, you prefer the GUI. But I've seen a little bit of both. So
perfect. And then I'm going to keep you on the line. I got one more question for you. You're very passionate about my sign-ins when we were planning this session and we got to demo that piece. How can an admin tell if a user clicked "this wasn't me" during that my sign-ins piece?
Yeah, so what we didn't get to show you during the demo is actually inside of the audit logs, there's an audit that a user clicked "this wasn't me." What that enables your organization to do is to create alerts specific to however you want to consume it, email, SMS, you can create a specific alert, but it gets audited. That's the huge takeaway there. We didn't get time to actually show that, but it's a huge win for your end users so they can start helping us as admins understand what's happening with their account. So
perfect. And then Jasmine, let's go back to you. What's the can connectors be used with private apps hosted on IaaS platforms in reference of app proxy?
Yeah, so the connector is this, fairly lightweight agent that you can install on really any server. To answer that question, yes, you can use connectors on your IaaS platform. So the connector is just this lightweight agent that you install on a server, and as long as it has network connectivity to your backend applications, that connector can start picking up requests and proxying them to your backend applications. So we have typical scenario is on an on-prem environment, but you can easily see the same thing if it is on an IaaS where you have a VM with that connector there and it's talking to your several on-premises applications.
Perfect. And then I'm going to keep you on the line for another question. Are there any plans for direct RDP support via app proxy without RD Gateway?
Good question. This kind of goes back to the earlier question around supporting other types of protocols, not just HTTP. So it is something we're thinking about, and what we'd really love to do is support protocols off of TCP. That way we can really have coverage for any higher level protocol that works on that. So something we're definitely thinking about.
Perfect. Melanie, we're going to go back to you. Verifiable credentials, decentralized identity, blockchain. We have tremendously intelligent customers, but still some of that future forward-looking moonshot stuff can be kind of confusing. How do you perceive it in terms of, will individuals, not just our customers, but then the end users that we're going to empower ownership of identity, how easy do you think it'll be for individuals to understand and adopt verifiable credentials?
Yeah, great question. I mean, for the decentralized identity model to really be successful, it's going to have to be easy. And it was really one of our design principles that we considered when we were developing this. And we want to make it easy for everyone in their daily lives. And so as you saw when Joey was doing his part of the demo, it was just as simple as scanning a QR code, and then he was able to add it as a card basically to his wallet. And it's really similar to a lot of the cards that you have today in your wallet, the physical cards that you have. Now you can digitally put it in your wallet, and you know that it's secure and that you have ownership over that credential. And so it's great because in this decentralized model, as an individual, you have one place that you can manage all of your verifiable credentials, and it really gives you, your own control plane, so to speak. So it's a simple set of tools. It's based on open standards. As I mentioned again, Microsoft will not have any ownership of the data at all. We're just providing a platform using the technology that's been created and developed in the standards community, and using it as another way for you to, prove yourself and your identity wherever you're logging in or verifying yourself.
Perfect. Got some questions on security again. I think apps and security, given the two big focuses of the session, it's been super popular and obviously very top of mind for customers. This one's on Windows Hello for Business. So Bailey or Joey, I'm going to throw this out there and see which of you would be comfortable taking it. Today, right, Windows Hello for Business still feels like a single factor. Do we anticipate in the future a capability to MFA the password or that first factor?
Joey, I'll give this one to you.
All right, sounds good. Windows Hello for Business, the principles of it, it's something you are. So if the device supports biometrics, that's hopefully something you can satisfy to unlock the device. But something you have, which is the Azure AD join, that enrollment process is actually protected by MFA. So to answer the question, do we have anything on the roadmap that could double factor it or MFA it? You've already satisfied MFA by having a device that you could successfully username, password, MFA, Azure AD register the device, and then you're also providing biometrics, or you could provide PIN. So my question, it would be really up to the organization, because there are other steps that you would definitely take, and I highly recommend reviewing the Zero Trust documentation that we have out there. You can see it as part of the chat, but it's really up to the organization on what is satisfying that MFA request. Because the other thing that you could take into account, specifically when it comes to the user authenticating, is the device health, so the device attestation. So if you have Intune, you can enroll that device as well and make it compliant. So that's another control that you have at as an option. And another side note would be that Windows Hello for Business actually gives you strong authentication. So from the get-go, your users don't see MFA, but they've already satisfied MFA. But I definitely highly recommend to review the Zero Trust documentation that we have out there, because passwordless, it's a better end user experience and it's more secure. So hopefully you can take device compliance into account as a requirement before they access the resource.
Perfect. And just a shout out as well, you mentioned Zero Trust. For folks, if you had jumped off to a break or another session, we do have quite a few Zero Trust sessions at this Microsoft Ignite as well. So if you go to aka.ms/IdentityIgnite2020, that not only will point you to Joy's blog, which is a summary of a lot of the announcements that you just watched in our session, along with all of our demoers and experts here, but also has a great little cheat sheet of our identity and broader Zero Trust presence here at Microsoft Ignite. So I highly recommend checking it out. Joey, I'm going to ask you one more question. During your standing desk demo, you were prompted for MFA on the MyApps portal. Does that mean that MyApps is now conditional access aware? Interest in, customers are waiting for this, and the security info page of the combined user portal they would love it to also be conditional access aware.
Yeah, that's a great question. During the demo, what you saw was me being prompted for MFA, but MyApps is definitely protected by Azure AD. It's an endpoint that's integrated already with Azure AD. So to answer the question, MyApps already is. It's natively protected by conditional access. What you saw in the first part was Bailey as the admin configured my apps to require MFA, and that's because my account was successfully compromised or my risk was actually high. So a huge takeaway from that is actually one of the things I've noticed is that security information page, you can actually control that today. If you go inside of conditional access and you look at user actions, there's a toggle inside of conditional access that allows you as an admin to protect register security information. So that's definitely something, if you weren't aware of that, definitely check it out. Because as an admin, you can require not only MFA, but if you have Intune rolled out inside of your organization and you have device compliance, you can make a device either come in as a compliant device, hybrid Azure AD join, or MFA, which you saw in the demo. So I recommend for the security info page, you have that control today. And from a My Apps perspective, you can target it if you do all applications.
And also to add a little bit more specificity, so being able to target just My Apps in the conditional access portal is going to be coming very soon. So it's something that we're working on, and I can't wait for y'all to have it in the future. But you read my mind on that. It is a feature that we're currently working on.
Perfect. Yeah, it seems conditional access, risk-based policies, that granular control, super top of mind for our customers as well. I'll actually ask you this one. Can we configure multiple user risk policies? And then kind of what are you seeing in terms of best practices with customers out in the field as well that you see them doing?
Yes, so I would recommend having multiple user risk policies, especially, again, earlier I mentioned just whiteboarding out all of your users who may be impacted or who are going to be impacted by conditional access, and really thinking about, if this user is high risk, do I just want to block them altogether because they are, they have privileged access, they look at sensitive information during their day-to-day, maybe I just want to block them. But for other users in my environment, if they are high risk, perhaps I just want them to go through that password reset flow. So really just think about what's best for you there, but I would recommend having separate policies, especially for the different groups that make up your workforce.
Perfect. Question here. I can take this question. I'm going to be an expert for a second. Some popular questions on Azure AD Connect cloud provisioning and when will that be generally available? And will we have any updates there? So just a quick context for Azure AD Connect. So we have Azure AD Connect Sync, Azure AD Connect Cloud Provisioning. So at last Ignite, we talked to you about Azure AD Connect Cloud Provisioning, and this is really you're driving your ability to get your users to the cloud powered from the cloud, right, rather than powered from on-premises. So we announced that public preview, hit it last year. We've been updating it. So we just announced, actually in one of our on-demand sessions, we've announced some refresh of the public preview. And if you can stay tuned, we'll have some good news soon on the general availability of that. But I would highly recommend checking out this public preview refresh, or not a full refresh, but some extra complementary features that we've added onto that. And again, if you go to that aka.ms/identity Ignite 2020, that has a summary of all of our on-demand content when you want to just take a break and watch something and not follow all of this aired live content. And there's a session about accelerating your journey to the cloud with your hybrid identity. Check that out and it'll give you everything you need to know about cloud provisioning. And with that, I think we're about 1 minute left. So we will stay on for a little bit longer, but get your last questions in if you have some burning questions. And then I think we'll see question. I'll throw this out there. Which Azure security feature are available for customers with Microsoft 365 Business Standard license? So if any of our SMEs are specialized on the SMB side of the world and our Microsoft 365 Business, anything we can comment on in terms of Azure security features there? I'll take that one then. Yeah, with Microsoft 365 Business, you get full Azure AD P1 capabilities. So with Azure Active Directory P1, as we talked through here, you heard a little bit in Joy's, your big value there, your big security driver is going to be the ability to work on your conditional access policies. Just remember, you've already got MFA for free with Azure AD Free with using our Authenticator app. But with P1, you're going to up level there to conditional access. And then if you go to subsequently Azure AD P2, you're going to have additional security capabilities, risk-based policies. That's when you bring in Azure Active Directory identity protection, and you get that extra nuance, that extra fine-grained control of all of your conditional access policies. And with that, I think we've hit time. So I would like to thank all of our experts here. Wrap up in just a quick summary, probably sick of me saying this aka.ms, but I would highly recommend checking it out. So aka.ms Identity Ignite 2020, you get to see the blog, you get to hear about all of our announcements and see what our presence is here. If you broadly want to engage with Ignite, other than just identity, but all of the amazing security, compliance, and identity and larger enterprise tools that we have to offer, I would highly recommend, while you're in platform, checking out the live aired sessions and on-demand sessions. We have our tech community video hub, which just recently launched this morning as well. Think about this as a complementary opportunity where we can land deeper best practice content. You can see some more videos, and then the conversation will persist there beyond Microsoft Ignite, and we'll land some new content, fresh ones for you there, so continue afterwards. And then we also recommend checking out the virtual hub. So this is, again, a complimentary experience, very, very deep technical training. Check it out. We've got some labs in there, deployment guides, other videos, really great content. So we know we're giving you a ton of stuff over the next 48 hours. Please bookmark, come back, and digest it when you can. But we really appreciate you having you here. We appreciate all of our experts for joining us, and have a great Ignite.